I was reading the Ihya by Al-Ghazali recently, and he said something that really jolted me. And this is one of the things he said that probably makes a lot of Western thinkers think that Ghazali was against studying maths and science. But that's not the truth. What he said was that people are going to study science, which obviously is a study of the cause and effect in the universe. And in studying this, as long as there is a metaphysical framework from which they are studying this, so that they don't forget that the original and the primary source is Allah Himself, is God, then as long as they don't forget that, it's great. But what is going to happen, and he predicted this, that a time will come when people, the weak minded, will become so engrossed in observing the secondary source that they will forget the primary source. And he uses a poignant uh, analogy in his book. He says it's like a little ant sitting on the surface of an exercise book. And as the writing is happening on that exercise book, the ant can see the ink flowing, but it can't see anything beyond that. It can see the nib of the pen, the ink flowing, and that's it. So, in its imagination, the ink is coming from that nib. The primary source is the nib. Does it see the pen? No. Does it see the hand? No. Does it see the irada, the intention of the writer or the writer? None of that. All it sees is the nib and the ink. So Al-Ghazali says that this is what people are going to reduce themselves to looking just at that immediate source, and they're going to forget anything behind that. And sure enough, around the 1600s, along came Rene Descartes, who laid down the foundation for modern secular thinking. So his philosophy was that the human being is les cogitans, which is the thinking being, meaning the mind is separate from the world, and the world around us is all material. It's something that needs to be studied. It's something that needs to be exploited. It can be measured. So it's mind against everything else. Even our bodies are all just physical material substances. So from there came Cartesian dualism, mind versus everything else. Everything else needs to be exploited by the mind. So what he did was he essentially cut off anything that is above mind. He cut off anything that is related to God. Then came Immanuel Kant, who laid down the whole moral structure for modern society, in a sense that his idea was that the human mind and human logic is able to come up with a moral framework without having to look into the divine books or look into the religious books of the past. In other words, what he's saying is that our morality must come from our own mind. And that's similar to what Nietzsche said, that when you have killed God, and he said God is dead, not obviously, he didn't mean it in a literal sense. He meant that if we are going to do this, if we are going to remove God out of the equation, then we're still going to need morality. But that morality will have to come from within us. It's going to become a subjective sort of morality. Along came Charles Darwin with his theory of evolution, which was a big thing. It was a significant step for the atheists, because for the first time, what Darwin did, and a lot of people don't understand this, it's not so much what Darwin said and what Darwin wrote, it's what he was able to prove. Darwin was able to bring scientific credence to atheism, something that could not be explained rationally and scientifically before that, where a scientist who might consider himself an atheist would not be able to explain where did the universe come from, where did we come from, how do we exist, how do other animals exist, how do the birds exist. So Darwin, for the first time with his theory of evolution, became the forerunner in combining atheist philosophy with science. And that was the significance. That is why Darwin is held up so high. Basically, a lot of what he wrote was nonsense by today's standards. For example, when he said that the creatures are made out of cells which are nothing more than just gelatinous masses like atoms, he never understood the complexity inside a cell. But that's not my topic. So my topic comes back to modern education and science. Now, when people talk about Islamizing a current curriculum, the modern curriculum, to me, it sounds like putting lipstick on a pig to try and make that pig look attractive. It's never going to happen because the modern scientific education system was based on the premise of this scientific thought. It was based on the premise of secular thought, which basically held up two things. One is that everything we teach must be separated from any religious values. It must be. It must look at the world like Cartesian dualism, cause and effect, cause and effect. We look at it like that. In their minds, and I'm not making an excuse for them, in their minds, it's as if to say that we won't have a tinted view of the universe. We won't have a view that is tinted by religion, without realizing that they are tinting it by speaking about things that are deeply philosophical and coming up with their own theology around how the universe was formed, around how life was formed. I mean, up till today, it's still theory of evolution, but people state it like it's fact. It's become almost a theology of education. So they firmly believe in something that is totally unprovable, totally unrepeatable in a lab, totally devoid of any explanation, and they, which is a fact. But they're quick to point this out to people who are adherents of a religion to say, well, you are believing in something that cannot be measured, cannot be, etc., etc. So the thing is that there is a theology of evolution. The neo-Darwinists were very, they were solid proof of that. They had their own religion. Now, when we are sending our children to these schools, what we are actually doing is we are exposing them to this dualist kind of thinking, to this secular thinking, without giving them the metaphysical framework. Because where is that? We have, in the Muslim world, we have school, we have madrasa. Madrasa does not address anything that goes on in school. In madrasa, we're learning basic fiqh, we're learning the how to do your wuzu and how to do your salat and things. But children are not being equipped with the knowledge that what you are learning at school is basically materialism. It's basically the universe that's been reduced to just this very simple causality. Even the fact that we exist, even our very ability to think, our souls, the fact that we are alive, it's been reduced to a simple chemistry that happened by chance inside the brain. Now, when a child goes into this kind of system without being aware of what are, firstly, my core beliefs around this, we don't give them that. We don't give them that strong sense of aqidah. We don't teach them the Islamic philosophy, the Ghazalian philosophy on this. So they go in there completely exposed and completely unaware that there is an indoctrination that's taking place. And that indoctrination is subtle. It's everywhere. It's ubiquitous. You open up a textbook, you open up a university book, even a book meant for the public. They talk about evolved. Evolution has done this, evolution has done that. So it used to be a theory, and now suddenly it's a fact. And I'd say it's neither, it's a theology. So the child is being constantly bombarded. And then we naively, we take this curriculum and we decide that we want to somehow Islamize it. It's like retrofitting a little shack to become a skyscraper. So we just want to imagine that we build something on top of it, and eventually it's not going to happen. You're trying to retrofit something that was never intended for the purpose that you're supposed to intend it for. So from an Islamic perspective, what is required? What is the objective of education? And this is where Ghazali comes in again. Amazing, brilliant human being. He said, okay, you'll have to look at knowledge from the perspective of what is good and useful for this world and the next, and what is useless. So what is good and useful is, from a theological, from a religious perspective, anything that gets you closer to your creator. From a worldly perspective, anything that fulfills a need. For example, learning how to earn a living, learning medicine to cure people. These are considered useful knowledge, and Islamic knowledge is based on that. Ilm nafi'a, ilmun nafi'un, beneficial knowledge. Anything that is not beneficial is either a waste of time, and he uses the word, it's a waste of time, or downright harmful. Then the second thing is, it provides a strong sense of morality. It provides a strong moral compass, without which the world will rot. And that's what we are seeing today. There is large-scale rot. Much of the human suffering that we see around us, 95% of it, has to do with immorality of the powers that be. People who control the economics, people who control the agriculture, they control the mines, they control everything. And so they decide who gets to eat and who gets to die. And it's all greed, greed, greed. That's why in the USA today you have billionaires and trillionaires, but the common people are barely able to make a living. They can't afford simple things like healthcare, and a lot of other countries that mimic that. So this is a result of this entire education system. And I just want to conclude with this one other fact. The modern education system is largely dictated by UNESCO. So whether it's schooling, university, it's determined by UNESCO, among other things. Now, who was the founder of UNESCO? So the first Director General of UNESCO was T.H. Huxley. Now, T.H. Huxley was an ardent atheist. He, in fact, came out with his own religion, and he wrote a book. It was called Religion Without Revelation. So he was dead set, and the initial founders were dead set on coming up with a new secular religion that didn't have any involvement of traditional religion, whether it was Christianity, Judaism, Islam. It was something that needed to be standing on its own, based on materialist philosophy. This is what we are exposing our kids to. Again, without that metaphysical framework, without that shield of Islamic ideology, Islamic philosophy. In fact, most of us adults lack that philosophy also to stand up to the onslaught of science. So a lot of times we accept things without realizing. And I spoke not long ago, recently, to two separate Muslim PhD lecturers who believe in evolution. It's simply because they've been caught up in this zeitgeist.